Hello, scholars! Today we are going to be doing the first survey or something. I don't know what to call it. So basically, I figured out that Google Forms is a thing, and you can make these like free surveys, and it seems like pretty nice software, honestly, for something that's free. So I just want to do this video really quick to test Google Forms and see how that works and see if it can work when we're trying to figure out what the whole story is and put it together. And so just to show you guys how the survey worked, just scroll through it really quickly, and just some of them are multiple choice. Other answers you could sort of like write in your own answer. Some answers are just kind of like short text, like you can write anything that you want in here. Don't write that. And you can skip any one of these that you like don't want to answer. So if there's something that you're just like, well, I'm actually not quite sure how to answer this one, I don't really know, you can just skip it, not answer it, and still like submit the survey at the very bottom. And the only thing is that I think you do have to have a Google account, so like a Gmail, in order to log in and answer the survey. Because I only want people to take the survey once. If they take it more than once, then the answers kind of get skewed and the results are a little bit dishonest. So that's just to prevent people from doing the survey more than once. And I will put a link to this survey in the description of this video. I will post it also on our Discord that we're still getting set up, me and my friend. And I'll put it in like this like update section here. And then I will also post it onto Twitter. So I'll make it very easy for people to access. And so let's get started with this first question here. So why did Gascoigne split from the Healing Church? So the first one, Gascoigne discovered that the Beast Plague is being perpetuated by the Healing Church's special blood. So the big idea is that he has a line where he says,
"Beasts all over the shop. You'll be one of them, sooner or later."
And so people have kind of pointed that and to be like, okay, so he knows that everyone in Yharnam is doomed and they're all turning into beasts, and so he's just trying to kill everyone, I guess. And so that's why he split from the Healing Church, is because he found out that the Healing Church was really the cause of the Beast Plague. So the second answer is, after the Healing Church burned Old Yharnam to the ground, Gascoigne and much of the rest of the Yharnam population felt abandoned and betrayed. So there's a note in the the shortcut hub building where, you know, it's got like 2 levels and it's very dark. And there's a note in there that says like, the church abandoned us on that fateful night when they burned the Old Yharnam to the ground and barricaded the Great Bridge. So like in the original game, it actually turns out that like the split, like after Old Yharnam burns to the ground, it was really supposed to be like a huge event in the game. And originally it was supposed to be like the people of Central Yharnam, they all like turn against the Healing Church. And it was because it's like it's something like you know, in one of Richard Pilbeam's podcasts, he talks about how like the people call it the brick troll, but really it's a hunter's minion or something like that, huntsman's minions. It's banging on the gate and it's going, you know, that guy. Basically, originally that was supposed to be used as like the people of Central Yharnam trying to break into Cathedral Ward and get to the church. Because the divide between the Healing Church and the people of Central Yharnam was supposed to be much more severe in the original game. And now it's just sort of hinted at once in a little note that says, after the Healing Church burned Old Yharnam to the ground, we all felt abandoned and betrayed. So it could be that Gascoigne, he sees how the Healing Church treats the people of Old Yharnam, and that's why he tears his holy shawl and he's like, I'm no longer a hunter with the church, I'm going my own way. So there's that idea. So the third answer is he left the church to join his hunting partner Henryk as a League Confederate. So this is the one that Richard Pilbeam contributed. So Gascoigne has a hunting partner named Henryk, and they're supposed to be like a really dynamic duo. You know, they're like BFFs. They're great, and they kill beasts, and they're really tough. So if Henryk is a League Confederate, it's like, well, Gascoigne must also be a member of the League too, right? Because I mean, they're fighting side by side. They're BFFs. Like, why would one of them be a part of the League but not the other, or something like that? So you could say that Gascoigne is a member of the League like Henryk, and the only reason that he leaves the church is because he kind of retires after a while, and then he just joins the League. And like, Pilbeam also kind of like pointed out that like, he does sort of act like a member of the League, because it's like the Madaris twins are kind of described as taking beasts from the woods and sort of like chopping them up and then feeding them to their pet snake. And when you run into Gascoigne, he's really doing the same thing, where he's like chopping up a beast and just slicing it up. You know, it's really gory, really good, grotesque. So it's like, you know, he does kind of act like a member of the League. So you could say that he's a member of the League. So there's those three ideas. And then if you want, you can contribute your own idea right here. But there's a problem with like each of these ideas has a problem where it's kind of like, well, that's a bit strange. So Gascoigne discovered that the Beast Plague is being perpetuated by the Healing Church's special blood. So the problem with that one is that if he finds out that the blood is what's turning people into beasts, why is he still on the hunt and like smelling all this blood and absorbing all this blood? Like, he isn't being very careful about it. So he knows that the blood is what's going to turn people into a beast, but despite that, he's still on the hunt and still chopping people, and there's blood getting everywhere, and he's sort of absorbing that. So why is he so reckless with the blood? He would be much more careful if he knew that the blood is what causes the Beast Plague, right? You could just say that, like, well, he's just out of control at this point. Like, it's too far for him. He's kind of addicted to the blood. And so even though he knows that it will turn him into a beast, he still pursues it because he just can't control himself anymore. So you could say that. But then, like, the other problem that I personally have is that I don't know how he would find out. Because I think that's a really, really hard thing to discover. Because, again, I don't even know if the vicars of the Healing Church know that the blood that they're giving to people is what's turning them into beasts, honestly. I think, like the choir might know, like, the very high-level members, they might know. But in terms of, like, Vicar Amelia, because Vicar Amelia turns into a beast. If she knows that the blood is what turns people into beasts, she wouldn't be taking the blood, right? Like, why would she be doing that? So I get the feeling that the vicars, they actually don't know. So it's like, how would Gascoigne find out that the Healing Church's special blood is what's causing the plague or whatever? There's a note in like that little library as you go up to Odin Chapel where it says, the Bergenworth spider hides all manner of ritual and keeps our lost master from us. It makes my head shudder uncontrollably. So the line, it makes my head shudder uncontrollably, is a very, very odd line. And like the only place we ever really see that happen again is with the imposter Yosefka in Yosefka's clinic, where she says,
"Don't you see how they writhe inside my head?"
The imposter Yosefka, like Gascoigne literally goes up to that little library, and the imposter Yosefka is the one who tells them, hey, the Healing Church's special blood is what's causing this disease. So that could be how Gascoigne found out what was going wrong. And that's kind of what pushes him over the edge. But then again, there's that odd thing about, like, well, wouldn't he suddenly be careful and like, hey, get me away from all this blood. I don't want anywhere near it because it's going to turn me into a beast, and I have a wife and a family, and I need to take care of them or whatever. So that's kind of the problem with the first theory. So the second theory, after the Healing Church burned Old Yharnam to the ground, Gascoigne and much of the rest of the Yharnam population felt abandoned and betrayed. So the church burns Old Yharnam to the ground, and essentially they're killing beasts by burning it to the ground, but they're also killing, like, humans and killing women and probably children too. And so it's basically just this, like, genocidal mass murder, unfortunately. And so it's like that's kind of what causes the people of Central Yharnam to suddenly despise the church, and they don't want anything to do with the church, or possibly, or at least in the alpha, that's the way it went. And that's why there's that note in that one little building where it says, oh, the Healing Church, they abandoned and betrayed us. And so that could be why Gascoigne tears his holy shawl and splits from the church, because he doesn't like that treatment. Okay, the thing is, he seems to be pretty trigger happy right now. If he cares so much about how people should be treated, how humans should be treated, right?
Beasts all over the shop. You'll be one of them, sooner or later.
You'll be one of them sooner or later insinuates that Gascoigne knows that the player hunter, when he enters the Odin tomb, he isn't a beast, he's a human. And Gascoigne knows that. But regardless of the fact that Gascoigne realizes that the player is a human and isn't a beast, he is choosing to kill him anyways. So Gascoigne seems to be able to distinguish between humans and beasts, and regardless of that distinction, he's like, well, I might as well just kill you anyways. So, like, again, if the thing that Gascoigne is so upset with is the fact that the church burnt Old Yharnam to the ground and killed a bunch of humans, why is he killing the player hunter? So you could say that, well, when the Healing Church, when they burnt Old Yharnam to the ground, he was very upset with that and he split from the church. He still went on beast hunts, he still killed beasts and everything. And so, like, even though he doesn't want to hurt people or whatever, because he's continuing to kill beasts, he's progressively becoming more and more blood drunk and losing control. And he's starting to do the thing that he originally despised. So when the Healing Church burnt Old Yharnam to the ground, he didn't like that. He hated it. But then it's just because he keeps killing beasts and keeps taking the blood, he becomes more and more blood drunk over time, and so he just kind of goes on a rampage eventually, and he loses control. So you could say that. And then the third one, he left the church to join his hunting partner Henryk as a League Confederate. So the problem that Pilbeam pointed out with that one is that, well, you don't summon him as a League NPC, because you can summon Gascoigne, and he doesn't do the whole, like, the League Oath emoji or whatever it is. He doesn't do that. And Pilbeam said, like, well, he might be a member of the League, he just doesn't have the Oath rune. And so, like, if you don't know, like, I think technically that can happen. So, like, technically you can go to Valter, you can join the League, and then just never equip the rune, hypothetically. And the rune is what gives you the ability to see vermin. So it also insinuate that even though Gascoigne is a member of the League, he can't see vermin or whatever, like Henryk can. So maybe that's what's going on. Like, he is a member of the League with Henryk. They go on adventures together or whatever. But he doesn't have the rune equipped. So it could be that. So those are the three big ideas that I've seen. And again, like, not a single one is particularly perfect. They each kind of have, like, a pretty significant flaw to them, which you could explain, which you could, like, defend and explain somehow. So I don't know. So those are the ideas. And so this is just for clarification, because I haven't really seen people talk too much about this. So if Gascoigne discovered that the Healing Church's special blood caused the Beast Plague, how did he find out? So this is like a short answer. You can write in here whatever you want. And I just want to see what people think. So is Gascoigne a member of the League? Yes, but he doesn't have the rune. No, and then other. I don't know. You could say that he's a member of the Executioners or something. I don't know. And then also, is Gascoigne able to distinguish between humans and beasts? So initially it's kind of like, well, what does that matter? Well, it matters because some people say, okay, most people say that Gascoigne killed Viola. And we say that like, oh, well, he's blood drunk and that's why he kills her and he thinks that she's a beast. Problem is, I don't think that he like, again, he's able to recognize that the player character is human. Beasts all over the shop, you'll be one of them sooner or later. He recognizes that the hunter is a human, which means that he would also know that when he killed Viola, he killed a woman, a human woman, and he just killed her anyways. Which, that's a bit twisted, right? Okay, and then how blood drunk is Gascoigne? So if you give it a 1, that's like completely sober. If you give it a 5, then that's completely drunk on blood. He has no idea what he's doing. Alright, and here's the big one, right? How did Viola die? And this is where we start getting into some lore theories that people sent in. So the first one, the obvious one, that's Gascoigne goes drunk with blood and murders her without realizing who she is. So there's a line from the little girl where she says,
"If you find my mum, give her this music box. It plays one of Daddy's favourite songs, and when Daddy forgets us, we play it for him so he remembers. Mum's so silly running off without it."
And so again, so like the insinuation is that Viola left without the music box, so when she gets to Gascoigne, she isn't able to like calm him down and remind him of who he is and who she is. And so Gascoigne kills her without realizing who she is. Maybe understanding that she's a human. Then the second option, a mob of mad huntsmen murder her, and Gascoigne arrives too late to save her. So this was sent by the attendant, which he wrote this 3 years ago, actually. The way I kind of see it now is, while searching for her husband, Viola was attacked by other infected townsfolk. Then, hearing the commotion, Gascoigne rushes to investigate, only to arrive in time to witness the death of his beloved. In a feral rage, he tears through the many beasts in the graveyard, and shortly after, we happen upon the scene. We find him hacking away at the bodies of her killers, and sees us approach. At this point, in Gascoigne's mind, everything either is, or soon will be a beast. Another one of the things responsible for everything that has gone wrong for him. Another one of the things that took his love away. So then, a broken man, mad with rage and loss, charges towards his next prey. And so let me read this theory from A Good Hunter. I like that name. Father Gascoigne does say, "Please forgive me," when he dies. Why? So I think the one who said that, who interpreted Father Gascoigne's like last words when he dies, I think that was Silvermont. Silvermont kind of listened to it and said, "Oh, it kind of sounds like he's saying, 'Please forgive me.'" If he is a beast unable to remember anything, including his wife, then why ask for forgiveness? If not, then he clearly retains some sort of knowledge of something he has either done or failed to do. He could be asking for forgiveness from Viola. He killed her after all, and it drove him mad. Only his death adds some clarity to what he has done. Or he could be asking her forgiveness because he failed to protect her and their children, which is more tragic, which is more terrible, which makes for a better story. I think the latter. He sees us as part of the problem, he is not wrong there, and wants to kill us before we cannot distinguish humans from beasts. Echoes of Jura here. As he dies, the gallant Father Gascoigne knows he failed to protect his family and asks for forgiveness. And aside for the music box, when we play it to Father Gascoigne as a summon, he seems fine with it. After Viola's death, the box causes him great pain, as it could be guilt of killing her, or guilt of failing to protect her. Another mystery is when we take the summoned Father Gascoigne to his home, there is no dialogue that allows us to tell the little girl that we have found her dad. Henryk finds Father Gascoigne's corpse, and when we show up, he attacks us, summarizing that we one that killed his friend. Only Eileen the Crow helps us defeat him. Henryk has eyes. He probably corpse. If he did, why does he not assume that Father Gascoigne killed her? Henryk is no beast. Henryk is unnaturally long-lived and a part of the gallant duo of hunters reputed for their deeds. Surely he can work out what happened. Or can he? Eileen tells us he has gone mad. What evidence do we have for that? But her word. How much do you trust her now? Then the third option, which I give this one like an A++ for creativity. This is brilliant. By Cosmic Fugu, I think is how you pronounce that. So Cosmic first says that it's unlikely, because you find Viola's body on a rooftop, so it's kind of like, well, how would Gascoigne, throw the body up there, and why would he do that? That seems kind of odd. This time, it occurred to me that maybe he didn't kill her, and she died in some other way. And then I looked up to see the great bridge stretching overhead, but not directly overhead. Her body appears to me to be positioned almost precisely beneath the edge of the bridge. So that sparked a wannabe Sherlock moment for me, and led me to immediately conclude that she either jumped, fell, or was pushed from the bridge above. I think it seems reasonable to suggest that maybe she was trying to make her way to the cathedral ward in search of Gascoigne, but ran into the cleric beast on the bridge and was thrown off. And then there's the fourth option. Gascoigne joins Henryk as a League Confederate, which gives him the ability to see vermin. And upon realizing that Viola has vermin inside of her, he kills her. Okay. So Pilbeam says that Viola's brooch looks like a Canehurst one, and Viola's clothing is probably Canehurst. So there's ability that Viola is actually from Canehurst. And we've had this idea that, the Viobloods have vermin inside their bodies. Because it's with the headless bloodletting beast that you find in Eyehill, I think. Like the parasite that comes out of the open neck wound, when it attacks with its pincers, it actually builds up rapid poison. Canehurst, they're really associated with rapid poison too. The Chicago actually causes rapid poison buildup. So the idea is that all Viobloods have a lot of vermin inside their bodies, and that's why they're vile. And so Henryk, if he's a League Confederate, which he is, he would actually be able to see vermin. And he would actually know that if Viola is from Canehurst, that she has vermin inside her body, if the Canehurst people have vermin inside of them. So if, Gascoigne joins Henryk as a League Confederate, that gives him the ability to see vermin, and then upon realizing that Viola has vermin inside of her, that's when he kills her, because, the League, they hate vermin, so even though Gascoigne loves Viola, he ends up killing her because she has all that vermin inside of her. Oh yeah, so with this one, there's a bit of a problem, because the bridge overhead, the bridge that is above the Tomb of Odin Tomb, whatever it's called, it actually isn't the Great Bridge. So if you go to the Great Bridge and you look to the right, I believe, you can actually see the other bridge that leads to the Gascoigne boss fight. And so it's the Tomb of Odin would be a little bit past the Great Bridge, or at least the segment of the Great Bridge where we fight the Cleric Beast. So the Great Bridge ends before the Tomb of Odin. The Tomb of Odin is not anywhere below the Great Bridge, unfortunately. There are two bridges above the Tomb of Odin, but I don't think the player hunter ever goes on them whatsoever. So I don't think that the Cleric Beast could have swatted Viola off the bridge and then she fell. Well, what could happen is that Viola is at the Great Bridge, the Cleric Beast is there, Cleric Beast grabs her, and then literally just chucks her across the map, and then she lands in the Tomb of Odin, and Gascoigne is just and that's why he goes crazy. So you could say that. So obviously I'm going to go with this one because I find that to be the most amusing. Now, okay, so does Gascoigne have two daughters? So there are two supposed daughters of Father Gascoigne and Viola. There's the younger daughter, who's the first one you meet, and like her dialogue is a bit weird because she'll say things like,
I love you almost as much as Mum and Dad. And Granddad.
so it's like she never mentions having a sister. But after she dies, suddenly there's a second girl in the house, and she's very envious of the ribbon. Like, her dialogue is a bit strange.
What a perfect ribbon. And now it's mine. I can't wait to try it on.
And because the first little girl never mentioned having a sister, is that sister supposed to be an imposter? And she's an imposter because, like, she just wants the white ribbon or something like that for whatever reason. Silvermont pointed out, which was an interesting find, that in the credits, the voice actresses for the little girl and the second girl, they're actually, I think, like, those voice actresses are actually sisters as well. Like they have the same last name, believe it or not. And Grim Reaper Luna says, the older sister, in fact, might just be a neighbor who lives nearby. After the blood moon rose, she, in her madness, crept into Gascoigne's house when there was no one else around to look for the white ribbon. When the hunter interacts with her, she pretends she is the young girl's older sister to trick the hunter into giving her the ribbon. Sundown Kid pointed out, I'd personally believe the game's credits over any fan theories since the devs have never lied in the credits, even admitting there is an imposter Yusefka. The credits saying older sister shuts that theory down entirely in my eyes. So this question is just to establish, where is Henryk from? Is he from Yharnam, Loran, Caners, Tumaru, or some other place? So this comes from Cordafan. So this is about Henryk. Henryk could have come from the land of Loran, home of dark beasts. He's not white, as you can see here. So maybe he's an outsider, like so many hunters are. And he, like you said, uses electric resistance gear. Loran seems to be Middle Eastern-ish, so that's that. So yeah, so like in Loran, it's like there's like sand everywhere and it's kind of swirling around. So it's the idea that like it's supposed to be like sort of like Egyptian or Middle Eastern, something like that. And so Henryk's skin color kind of looks like he might be from Loran, or a place that is sort of Middle Eastern-ish like Loran. Alright, Henryk's hunter garb describes him as taciturn, which could mean silent or stern. Why is Henryk taciturn? So he literally cannot speak because he's mute or has no tongue. He can talk but often chooses not to. Or Henryk is of a Tumerian lineage and has limited verbal communicative ability. So yeah, people have kind of interpreted the taciturn line to mean like, well, he's just like a wise, silent kind of guy. He just doesn't have much to say. Or it could be that, like, no, like, he is literally mute and he literally cannot talk. And so, like, it seems kind of off the wall, but this one right here, this is one that I actually came up with. Because the Tumerians, they don't seem to communicate verbally. So, you know, the Tumerians around Cathedral Ward, all they really say... They don't have a very advanced language, it would seem, or at least not a verbal language, it would seem. And when you run into Queen Yharnam, all she does is she just sort of like sniffles because of how sad she is, and then she'll bow. That's it. She doesn't say anything. So it kind of comes across to me like the Tumerians are not very good at talking. Ligarius, on the other hand, he's presumably Tumerian. So the Goldoredo says, as the great Ligarius once said, acts of goodness are not always wise, and acts of evil are not always foolish, but regardless, we shall always strive to be good. So Ligarius, despite seeming to be Tumerian, apparently he can communicate pretty well, right? I actually don't think so. I don't think that the Tumerians communicate using a verbal language. I think what's actually going on is that they communicate using chemicals. So Gascoigne has a line where he says,
What's that smell? The sweet blood. Oh, it sings to me.
So it's like when he drinks the blood, he's able to hear something in his brain. He's able to hear some kind of singing. Same thing with the Rosmarinus. When you spray the Rosmarinus, it's spraying a liquid quicksilver. And you can actually hear like a choir singing. So I think what's going on is that people's, like, voices are sort of like in their blood somehow. In the Japanese translation of Vicar Amelia's little chant or prayer or whatever you want to call it, there's a line in English where it's, and the beast will dangle nectar and lure the meek into the depths. There's that line. Well, in Japanese, it's actually, the beast will whisper honeyed words. So it's like, again, like people drink the blood and then they can hear voices in their brain. And again, the act of drinking blood is called communion, meaning like communication. So I think is that the underground Tumerians, they don't communicate verbally. They communicate with their blood. And so Ligarius, I think Richard Pilbeam was the one who pointed out that little line is supposed to be like a Japanese death haiku or something like that, where like a man sits in a chair or whatever, and he tries to record his final thoughts into a haiku before he dies. And so I think it was Pilbeam. He was the one who kind of said like, okay, well that's literally what's happening with Ligarius. I don't think I think that's the idea, is that it is supposed to be like a death haiku. It is like his final words. But again, those words don't happen like through his voice, through verbal communication. He dies, and then his sons drink his blood, and then they hear Ligarius's final thoughts. His final thoughts being, sometimes genocide is okay, basically. So that's kind of like an off-the-wall idea. But like, if Henryk is from Laron, I think that he might be like part Tumerian. And I think that he might be more Tumerian than Annalise, because Annalise can communicate verbally very, very well. But most Tumerians don't really seem to be able to. So that's why I think like the taciturn line is trying to insinuate that Henryk is actually from a Tumerian lineage, and he has about as much communicative ability as, say, Queen Yarnum, where all she does is she sniffles, she bows, and that's it. Or the other Tumerians are in Cathedral Ward, where they just kind of moan and groan like zombies. So that's really my idea. And so Henryk is Viola's biological father, adoptive father, or neither. So the little girl, Gascoigne's daughter, says, I love you almost as much as mom and dad and granddad. And so it's like, granddad? Well, who is your granddad then? And we know that Gascoigne's partner is Henryk. So Viola kind of pointed to like, okay, so Henryk must be the granddad then. Henryk is Gascoigne's father. Well, probably not Gascoigne's father. So there's the line, the taciturn old hunter Henryk was once partners with Father Gascoigne, and though they were a fierce and gallant duo, their partnership led to Henryk's tragically long life. So I think Redgrave kind of pointed out that that sort of means that like there was a time when Henryk and Father Gascoigne were like separated and they weren't partners, and then they came together, and then that's what led to Henryk's tragically long life. So if Henryk is just Gascoigne's father, then it's kind of like they would have been partners the whole time or something like that. So if the little girl refers to granddad, it is probably the granddad on the mother's side, Viola. So Henryk is Viola's father. But the contradictory evidence is that Henryk looks like this, while Viola looks like this. That skin tone doesn't really look... They look like they don't quite match, really. So if Henryk is supposed to be Viola's father, or even Gascoigne's father, that skin tone doesn't quite seem right. So if it is a father-daughter or father-son relationship, it might actually be like an adoptive relationship. Alright, now we get to the red jeweled brooch. So where does Viola's red jeweled brooch originate from? So people have pointed out that the red jeweled brooch, it looks like an item from Cainers. So if you look at the knight set, it also has a red jeweled brooch. And then Pilbeam also pointed out that the red jeweled brooch was originally supposed to be a Cainers item, and then like the developers sort of like tossed it around into a couple other different places, and eventually it sort of just landed with the Gascoigne and Viola questline. So people are like, well, does the red jeweled brooch come from Cainhurst then? And this is actually important because if the brooch is from Cainhurst, that kind of insinuates that Viola might be from Cainhurst, right? Well, not entirely, because the red jeweled brooch specifically says that it was a gift from a hunter. So the red jeweled brooch could insinuate that Viola is from Cainhurst, and like it was something that like her like biological parents passed down to her. And so Viola is from Cainhurst, and then Pilbeam also pointed out that like her attire is also sort of like Cainhurst attire or something like that. I'd have to look. I haven't like seen like pictures of like a comparison or anything. But it's supposed to be sort of similar. So it's like Viola could be from Cainhurst if that's what that insinuates. But if it was a gift from a hunter, and the two hunters that that Viola is kind of associated with are Gascoigne, her husband, and Henryk, her possible father or adoptive father, then the red jeweled brooch could be from one of them, and either of them could actually be from Cainhurst then. But then Pilbeam also pointed out that like, well, just because they have a Cainhurst item, that doesn't mean that they have like a biological lineage attached to Cainhurst. It could just be that because the executioners went to Cainhurst and raided the whole place, they took its treasures too, and then the red jeweled brooch is just one of the many treasures that they took. The reason that I kind of don't like that is because when you go to Canehurst, I think part of the point is to say that it's actually still pretty nice. It isn't really like the executioners. They went to Canehurst and they seem to like not have been that interested in like the treasures or the books or any like worldly possessions. They didn't seem to like really like, you know, like completely sack the place, right? Which I think that kind of insinuates that the executioners went to Canehurst for the sole purpose of exterminating the population. That's why they went to Canehurst. And all of these worldly possessions, they don't care about any of that. So it could still be that they like snagged a few items and then it's like the servants of Canehurst afterwards kind of fix the place up because they are kind of still like cleaning everything up, so that could be the case. And like the other reason why like I kind of don't think that it's supposed to be from a woman, so it isn't Viola's like native red jeweled brooch or whatever, is because there are two different versions of the knight's attire. There's the male attire and then there's the female attire. The female attire has a red jeweled brooch, but it is much more dull. The male attire has a much brighter red jeweled brooch. So it seems to me that it was supposed to be like from a male knight. So sort of like what I'm thinking is that it was an heirloom that was like passed down to either Gascoigne or to Henryk, and one of them gives it to Viola as a gift. Or it could be like from Viola, so like if Henryk is the adoptive father, it could be from like Viola's like actual biological father if she's from Canehurst. And so that insinuates that Viola is from the Canehurst lineage. So again, so like the red jeweled brooch, like figuring this out is actually kind of important because whoever gave her the red jeweled brooch, I think that will kind of insinuate that that person's lineage is actually from Canehurst. And so then we get to the big question of like which of these characters are from Canehurst. Because, Pilgrim said that Viola might be from Canehurst because her outfit sort of looks like it's from Canehurst, and she also has the red jeweled brooch. Or we could say that, well, it was a gift from Gascoigne or Henryk, and we already asked like, where is Henryk from up here? So we could say that Gascoigne is from Canehurst, Viola is from Canehurst, Gascoigne and Viola are both from Canehurst, or none of the above. And then the last one is just any additional comments. So if there's anything else that you just want to like put in here, or like any like corrections that you want to make, or any additional theories, you can put it in this little box right here. And it's long text, so I don't know how many words you can fit in there, how many characters. But you can do that, and then I'll read it. And again, I'll make a second video, which is going to be like our post-discussion video. I'll talk about whatever people put in there. So that is the whole survey, which was supposed to be short and easy, but my voice hurts because that was actually a lot to get through. And honestly, I started with Gascoigne's family because I thought, oh, this will be pretty easy. But then the more I dug into it, the more I'm like, well, there's actually people debating a lot of these things. So I will put a link for the survey in the description down below. I'll also post it onto Twitter. And we also actually have a Discord now. So I'll put that as a link down below too. So until next time, scholars, goodbye.